Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to St. Peter's Episcopal Church. My name is TJ Thomas. I'm the Minister of Music here at St. Peter's. On behalf of our St. Cecilia Music Guild Standing Committee and the people of St. Peter's, welcome. We're glad that you've joined us this afternoon for the performance. The Guild's 2024-25 season is full of engaging, diverse musical events. You can visit stceciliaguild.org for a complete listing of events, or ask an usher for a season brochure, which will give you an idea of what we did this past season, but today is the last concert of our 24-25 season. While you're on our website, you can click the green subscribe button, and then you'll be apprised of our 2025-26 season when all those details are published in August. If you're looking for a spiritual home, we'd be honored to have you join us here at St. Peter's for worship. Our liturgies are at 5 o'clock Saturday, 8 o'clock on Sunday, and the choral service is 10 o'clock on Sunday. St. Cecilia Music Guild believes strongly in public access to professional concerts. Thank you to our donors who are listed in your program. If you'd like to support our mission, you can visit our website, stceciliaguild.org, and click Donate Today or scan the QR code in your program. A reminder to please silence your cell phones before we begin the performance. There are restrooms available at the front door of the church, and we also have, silence your cell phones. We also have earplugs available. The tagline for the performance is what? Battles can be loud? Battles can be loud. So if you want some, just raise your hand and we'll bring more around to you. It's my privilege to now introduce you to Vince Watchhorn, who is president of the Friends of Cooch's Bridge. Vince?
Thank you, TJ. I just have a very few words to share before the performance begins today. And first of all, I want to thank St. Peter's and TJ and the St. Cecilia Music Guild, who have been an absolute joy to work with ever since TJ and I hatched the idea of working together on this concert last summer. So thank you very much to all of you who are associated with those organizations. I also want to let you know that part of what we think about at Cooch's Bridge Historic Site is the vision of how we can allow the cultural legacy of the site to endure for future generations, and that's part of what you'll see today. Before we get to the world premiere of Cooch's Bridge, The Battle, which is the last piece on the program today, there are several other works that will explore this texture of organ and percussion and engage in this incredible space that we have today. There is one extra piece on the program that will be added. The group will talk about it. You won't see it in your printed program, but there's one addition. And I also wanted to point out the back of your program. If you are interested in supporting the mission of the Friends of Cooch's Bridge Historic Site and becoming one of our founding friends, there's guidance there for you to do that. And the last thing I want to mention is a visual element of what you'll see on stage today. When we announced registration for this program was open, we almost immediately, I think I sent the registration announcement at 10:16 on a Saturday morning, and at 10:22, we had a response from a couture fashion designer who said, we need to send this group into battle looking just right. And he was willing to donate his services, his design, his vision to make sure that the group had a unified look. And that's what we will see today is the work of Sean Barron Pinkney, couture designer, elevating the overall visual so that there's a real bel composto between the music and the environment that we're in and what we're seeing on stage as well. Without anything further from me, please welcome the Whitney Project.
Thank you. Is this on? Can you hear me? We are adding a piece to the program. It's called Battaglia de Torres, and this is from the Spanish Baroque organ repertoire. I have the opportunity to play organs in Oaxaca, which I go to every year, and these are Spanish organs that have been brought over, 17th century, 18th century organs. And they're completely different than French, German organs. The ones in Oaxaca have one keyboard, split in the middle, one sound from C sharp up and another sound from C down. No pedals, so you have to make music a different way. And one of the favorite subjects, this was actually popular in France too, was to depict battles in organ music. So organ can make all kinds of trumpet sounds and thunderous sounds, so it kind of makes sense. But there are literally hundreds of these compositions. So since this program is about a battle, we thought this would be appropriate, and Jonathan Whitney's going to join me. Oftentimes, they would add percussion to, further simulate the battle. So this is Battaglia de Torres by, I forget his first name, Joseph de Torres de Vergara.
Jonathan asked me to say a few words before we head into the world premiere. And I think the first thing I have to say is that it is such a special occasion every time we get to bring a new piece of music into the world. You're only the second audience that has ever heard what we're about to hear. And actually, there have been some adjustments since Friday night, so you're really the first audience that's going to hear exactly what you're about to hear. I did want to extend a few thanks and then just let you know a little bit about Cooch's Bridge. Both the 1916 Foundation and Delaware 250 have made transformational gifts to support this work because they believe in it so much. I'm very appreciative to them. And the Delaware Division of the Arts has believed in and supported this series of commission that the Friends are doing since the very beginning. They made a small gift to the first program that we did in this series and have gotten more and more serious as they've gone. I also want to thank David and Ann Hamilton, and particularly one of our closest Sussex County friends, the Carrie Lingo team, Southern Delaware Properties. They've been very loyal to us. And of course, St. Cecilia Guild and St. Peter's Episcopal Church. I would also like to say a thank you to the 8th and 9th generation of Cooch family members who have stewarded the property and given this incredible opportunity to the state of Delaware to preserve and present and understand and explore the place we call Cooch's Bridge Historic Site. Dick and Barbara and Merritt are all here. Generation 10 could not make it, but 8 and 9 are here, and Sean also. Thank you so much. Cooch's Bridge is a Newcastle County story, but one with a statewide and even a nationwide impact, which is one of the reasons it is so important for us to come down to Sussex County and make sure that we're telling the story here as well. It's a statewide story. We want to make sure everyone's included. I'll be extremely brief in this summary, and I will note, I am not a historian. In August of 1777, a group of British and Hessian soldiers, range of 5,000 is what I'm told, landed at the Elk River in Maryland. Their goal was to capture Philadelphia. The first major obstacle that they faced was a crossing in an area called Cooch's Bridge. General Washington knew that it was going to be a loss, but he also knew that if he was able to delay just enough time, he could basically pack up the capital and move it somewhere else so there wouldn't be too much for the British soldiers to seize. And he instructed the troops at Cooch's Bridge to cause an inconvenience. And that's exactly what they did. It was a loss for the American side. We know of 24 who were deceased. We know the identities of some of them. You can find them on page 4 in your program, thanks to the research of Wade Katz. We also know that there was at least one African-American soldier there who was actually an enslaved person who was enslaved by one of the captains at Cooch's Bridge and who was later freed, manumitted at that person's death, and given 400 acres on one side of the road, 40 acres on the other, and all that he needed in order to set up intergenerational wealth for his family. The loss at Cooch's Bridge was significant, but it did cause a delay, and from there, the troops went directly up to Brandywine Battlefield and then eventually in to Philadelphia, where they did seize what was then the capital. Jonathan's conception of the story begins at the Elk River with an actual recording of the babbling waters of the Elk River, and then the same at the water at the Christina River, which runs through the Cooch's Bridge property. And after that, the day and the battle unfold. In addition to writing this, Jonathan has also done extensive research with Wade Katz, Mary Torbay, Chuck Fithian, to understand what the day might have sounded like, what the day might have been like, what were the actual drum calls that the Army was using to communicate with each other in a section that Jonathan calls 3 camps. Cooch's Bridge, the battle. Thank you.